Hey, how are you guys doing? I'm Grandmaster Denes Boros, and we are back on track on how to build a repertoire. So, in that vein, we're going to practice and learn the basics, how to build it. Hey, God's chess, some great results against women title holders and grandmasters. Nice. Keep it going. Keep it going. So the plan is, as you might remember, I am going to play openings. I'm gonna even post it right here. So e4, knight c3 systems and Sicilians. So I am going to try to build up this repertoire, and you'll see how it's growing. And we'll take a look at it. If you feel that you don't understand what's going on, or I don't understand, because there are moments that I don't understand what's going on. And in those cases, it does make a lot of sense to go over it and take a look what's just happening. So I'm going to play, as usual, 1e4, knight c3, if you remember from the first session, and play the King's Indian versus 1d4. Okay, let's go 1e4. And if you remember, you can guess my second move, actually, except for d5, because this is the only exception. Now I'll take on d5. Let's go knight c3, queen d8, bishop c4, knight f3, e6, d4, and this is ideal because I get the center, bishop g5. This is a little bit inaccurate because white will get the chance to pin that queen. h6, creating a hook, which, if you've been following some chess these days, might not work out that well for my opponent. Knight e5, pressing on that knight, and that could be especially nice if I get f4 in. There, let's go f4. And I can even go castles or long castles, it sort of depends. c6. Okay. Now king castle short, castle long. I think castling long makes more sense in the perspective of I'm going for a big attack. Okay, there. And this might have been a mistake. Might have been a mistake. Takes. And now I'll take the moment to just step away, defend this knight, and defend the pawn on f4. Well, it's so funny that people recognize g4 after Magnus says that g4 is amazing. Oh, that drops a pawn, and we're going to greed it up. But in fact, g4 was a big idea by the Grandmaster, very well known in America, called Shabalov, who actually devised this Slav gambit line. Okay, so takes. There's just many pleasant options. Just have to decide which one to choose. All right, let's go for clarity. Clarity can't hurt that much. Takes, knight takes d5, and I've got an extra pawn with many of my pieces paralyzing my opponent. Let's go rook e1. My c6 knight. 97 check. That was kind of the sneaky way of defending. b5 wasn't good, no. And now my d-pawn is going to roll down the board because it has mighty support. Also, this guy is controlling the all important square on d8. Let's push. Now we'll come in and then rush down the board. In fact, I should rush down the board because d7 is kind of annoying. But there's knight d7. d7, then there's knight d7, and my knight is undefended. That's nasty. That is nasty. Classified nasty. Okay. Rook d4. So I'm going here, doubling up, defending this guy, and preparing to bring in the support. You always need that extra support. And once the support arrives, it's going to be a triumphant journey down to this square on c8. Hey Arzen. Knight d7. Okay. Alright, I'll soften this square on b5. I might even be able to gang up on that once this knight moves, because this knight is still controlling the e5 square. Rook d8. Let's take. Okay. Rook b4. Rook b8. Rook d1. Just going around. Note that this pawn is always threatening to move forward. Okay. d5. Wants to take. Can I go d7? Knight d7, rook d7, and that's defended. If takes, I queen. Guess not quite yet. Yeah, I am watching the chess legends these days. It's pretty exciting, to be honest with you. There, let's go c4. Trying to start pushing that pawn. And if my pawn, as I told you, reaches c5, it's over. But now if it takes d7, and then I'm promoting. There's no one defending this rank. Queens. And that square is covered. This pawn is not gonna promote. My king is just in front of it, so that's not gonna work. Rook e6. Okay. King d2 would be not a great idea. Let's go g4. Wanna kick out this knight? I could take with check. I forgot that. Also got 50 seconds. I've got to be tending to my time. This is a threat. Knight e4, but that is checkmate on the board. So no, I'm not using that program, no Fortnite. No, not at all. It is a specific event, Arsen. I don't know why some people are playing and are not playing. I mean, I don't even understand this qualify, not qualify thing. It's basically on invitation as per as I understand. Okay. So now e4. Do we remember what I'm supposed to play? Yes, I'm supposed to play this with c5 and e6. Hey Lolly, how are you? Online Olympiad. I have no opinion on it. Not at all. So white is playing sort of this slow system. But even here, g3 is to be preferred. And that is the thing that I think I will do with black. So, in fact, I'm gonna start with, I want to play e5 first, but okay, let's develop the knight. e5, knight d5, and this is kind of like a c3 Sicilian without c3. c4, I'm not too scared of that. Knight c7. Okay, let's go d6. So I'm undermining the c5 pawn. And I'm gonna go castling. Pretty soon. Let's castle. And now, again, sometimes you just follow chess principles and that gives you a good position. Here what I'm following is if I have more control than my opponent in the center, then I will have the advantage. White, on the other hand, has the square under control. However, my next moves will be revolving around playing f5 shortly. I don't think I want to go f5 immediately because of some of these jumps. I'm going to go h6 and play f5. f5, or it could even go b6, bishop b7. I'm gonna go this way first, just to activate this bishop, good old fianchetto, and then play f5. Notice that most of my moves just go in one direction. I know that this knight will have to move after f5, and in that case this bishop will gain power. So I'm going to go bishop b7, put pressure there. Queen b3, that's sort of a mysterious move. Okay, f5. And again, that's why you put all your pawns in the center, because now d4 is impossible to play. And it's clear that I'm better because I have more pawns controlling the middle. Rook d1. Let's go queen g6. Can already sense that I'm up to no good on this side of the board. Knight h4. Let's drop back. Hitting that knight. g3, yeah. g3 is not a great move as it activates my bishop. Now I'll go f4, chasing this bishop away, and once my knight gets access to d4, it is basically game over. Knight d4, and in fact it's almost done for because the queen will show up here and there'll be some nasty threats around the king, not to talk about the fact that white is losing a piece in the process. So I could take on e2 or go queen c6 first. I think taking is better. Takes. Maybe I have queen f2, takes, knight g2 takes here and mate. So takes, check, takes. The king can't go to any of those squares. Can block, but I take. My bishop is defending. King h1 and knight g3 is smothers, mate. Right, okay, let's take it. Queen f2. And after rook f2, check, takes, king h1, knight g3 is mate, because the king cannot run away. And again, this wouldn't happen if these guys wouldn't be miles and miles away from the king. And that's actually not an ugly mate. Pretty proud of it. The bishop is protecting the rook. The rook takes away all those critical escape squares, while the knight is the executioner. Sweet. Yeah, I mean, the Legends tournament is very, very interesting. It's sort of a mix of two worlds, recent grandmasters and the grandmasters of the 90s. And with this invitational drama, I don't know. I'm actually curious what you guys think. Okay. Let's go again with the c5, e6, g3, d5. I'm still trying to get the central control. Okay, d4. As I told you guys, oh, that's a mistake. That's a piece. That is a piece. But okay. Still got to do what you got to do. You should never get that queen out that early. Obviously. BC. There, and let's go for the attack. Let's attack. There, knight e4, h takes, opening it up for the rook. Bishop g5, queen d5. There, let's give a friendly check. Rook h2 is incoming, and maybe we could see another smothers mate, but not quite. But this is a mate too. Let me read what you guys think. What's going on? So overwhelmingly people say yes, should have been invited. Every checkmate is a good mate, I agree. Yeah, I don't know. Anish was invited, although Shirov. Yeah, there are many people that could have been invited. I completely agree. But it is obviously by the discretion of the organizers who they invite. Denoticing they can't have all your favorite players, I'm happy I get to see some of the former best players. right, so we recall, we're gonna go for e4 and knight c3 regardless, except obviously if they play the Scandinavian, when that's kind of a difference. I would call this the Alekhines Italian. Now c6, I've almost burned myself the first time around because I didn't know that I really have to take care of this very aggressive move of d5. Now d4 makes sense, or I could go knight f3. I think d4 is best because I always have d takes e5 in case of d5, and after takes I have control over the d5 square. Note that this knight on b8 is very clumsy. It can go to c6, which would be the natural response. Okay, d6. All right, I think I'm going to go for the long howl and go for long castling and hitting on the d6 pawn immediately. Queen e7, long castles. Queen e7 is doubly bad because it also blocks in this bishop, meaning that castling will take place in like 100 years minimum, plus tax. And if that is so, then my attack does look quite vicious. I mean, there is an argument that why would Nakamura be invited. However, as we all know, there were players invited who are also not in the legend status yet. So I can see the argument for both sides. That's what I'm trying to say here. Now, this pawn is extremely weak, and I could sell my advantage short by taking it. But I'm noticing the fact that this king is kind of hard stuck in the middle. So why not open it up and just break through, blast through in the center? I mean, some qualified, I think. Takes, and now I actually have threats here. SLW, no, I get it, that some weren't invited, they qualified. The top four. Okay, queen e6. I could take by now because that'll give an extra weakness. You know what? That's fine. There's no reason to try harder. Especially if I win 2 pawns, that is almost a guarantee. Takes. You would have liked to see Legends qualifying tournament, Counter Sparks. Actually, we kind of saw one. If you remember the match between Ivanchuk and Kamsky, that you could really call it a qualifier. Knight d5, and what I was talking about, I can go knight g5 here, and the e6 pawn is in grave danger. Grave danger. Knight f4, but that doesn't really help. I have g3 hitting on e6. Okay, well, that's another pawn. Can I go here? In fact, I can rodeo all the way to c5 and do the same threat. I could take, but then I would lose the momentum. One thing you don't want to lose is the momentum. Hello there, hello. Knight c5, hitting on b7, hitting on e6, and now this is very uncomfortable. Takes. If I take here, bc, b6, and my rook is lost. So you've got to be careful. even when you're up ahead, there are many things you've got to be careful of. And that is, you can lose a game in no time if you make just a slight mistake in chess. Okay, check, king there, just double checking. No, no good. So I'm just gonna take. And note that these guys are still stuck there. Now my opponent is trying, but after knight takes g7, this king will be excruciatingly open to attacks. Ivanchuk did not retire from chess. I mean, if retiring you mean playing the most exciting opening out there, the King's Gambit, maybe you're right. But I don't know, I'd be hard pressed to say that he's retired. Okay, let's go knight f5. Let's take all of them pawns, because why not? It's a free pawn, take it. Check. And I'm gonna go f4, kick out this knight. Hey, puzzles and puzzles. Okay. Let's go rook e1. This king is very vulnerable, so I'm kind of deciding to just swarm on in. Retire like Kramnik or Kasparov, he never officially retired. So I can't really say that's true. Let's take. Knight h6, just going for the extra 3 pawn game, which should be good. It sounds like a good decision. And now I'm going to storm down the board with my extra pawns on the king side. Okay, g4, start rolling. There, f5. g5. And I mean the extra benefit that in any kind of trouble I've got an extra pawn supporting. There, f6, h4. And those pawns are just way too many. And also after rook h7, my rook escapes from that terrible position. Now that's one of those things that you've got to be very honest with yourself, is how badly your rook is placed. There, f7. I'm gonna go g6, and once your pawns reach the 6th and 7th, that is usually the beginning of the end. Or you can mess it up. Not that it's anything special. I will just bring my king in. This rook has to stay here, otherwise I'll play g6. But once my king walks up, this pawn is promoting. There, king f3. King f4, now that's defended. And I can also wiggle through this direction. Not that I have to, because g6 is immediately a threat after that move. Okay, h5, g6 is coming. After that, I can move my rook. This pawn is not under threat after that. g6, my king can bolt up to h6 to hide from checks, and then this is decisive. Yeah. In fact, my opponent made the huge mistake of not developing and castling quickly. That's why I could win that game without too much trouble. By the way, guys, you can check out our YouTube channel if you're interested. I saw some talk about it previously, and there is the link that I posted in the chat below. So far I've been practicing these e4 ways of playing. Okay, so let's do it. Let's go e4. We all know going to play knight c3, except if it's the Scandinavian. Okay, let's go d4. Bishop b4. Okay, I'm going to go for this bishop d3, knight e2, which is a pet idea of none other than your favorite player, playing and essaying that good old opening, what we know as the King's Gambit. And the guy is obviously Ivanchuk. Why is kind of saying that this bishop is way stronger, so no wonder my opponent is trying to liquidate that off the board. Let's go bishop g5, bother that queen. And I'm gonna go a3, trying to mess with these pieces. There, a3. If bishop d6, I always have knight b5, just eliminating the bishop. And I know that my opponent is planning to go long castles, but I always have this b4 idea. So I'm not truly scared of that prospect. Go b4 there, knight a4. Yep, let's do that. Knight a4, knight c5. I'm going to post my knight on that juicy square of c5. Nate Boy, thank you for the follow. No, I don't think I'm going to play the knight c6, knight e7 line in the King's Indian, but that is also a repertoire idea if you fancy that. It actually takes a lot of energy and I'm not quite sure how good it is. So my plan is to bother that bishop or post that knight on this juicy square of c5, which in turn can open up my position. Knight d4. Okay. Knight b6. If I take, knight takes, that's not good. There, takes, knight takes, takes. Can I go queen e2, bishop d3, takes d3. Yeah, I might have misplayed this one. There, wait, takes, there. Queen e2. Why am I such a boss? I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a boss, but I'm trying my best. I am trying my best. So I am trying to put and keep this king on e8. Question is if that happens. So what I was calculating is some lines on bishop d3. Although in that case, maybe I can take on d7. And there shouldn't be too much trouble. By the way, if we talk about questions, what do you think about Kamsky not playing? Takes, but as far as I know, I can take, and I have knight f6, gf, rook e1. The bishop has to move. If the knight ever moves, I can take on e2. The bishop moves away, I have bishop f6. Check, then there's bishop g6. Take takes, that's nothing. Okay, so knight d7. Takes, knight takes, gf, rook e1. And because of that king being stuck in the center, this sort of works. Knight f6 and rook e1, picking up that bishop. Or, if the bishop moves, I have bishop f6 and threats on e7 and h8. Gata's the man? He's not a boss, he's a grandmaster, says Michalori. Could be, yeah. Sounds about right. King f7. Okay, so we've got to defend this guy. Hit this bishop. Arsene, if you're asking when I will become a super GM, that's a tough question. That is a tough question. Okay, if I take, is there knight g6 or knight f5? Knight f5, knight g5, king g6, rook e6, king h5. I don't quite trust that. Knight d7 doesn't win anything. Knight h7 takes bishop g5. That's fine. So I'm trying to use the fact that this knight is undefended, and I'm looking for alternatives how to punish black for that insolence. Takes. Here, check. There. Check. King g6. Check there. I mean, I could even try knight e4, and that's my original idea. But it's actually almost the same thing. Or is it? It's not actually the same thing. There. All right, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it. Hey, ALDRS, how are you? Chat wants to invite everyone. I mean, that's a kind thing to do. That is a kind thing. Knight h7, the point is the e7 knight is hanging, so that's why I'm giving my knight away. Knight f5, of course. Knight g5 check. King g6, wow. Walking the tightrope. And the question is if that king survives, which unfortunately is a possibility. So rook e6, king h5, f4, knight h3, h3, g6, check. And the king walks all the way up to h5. That is outrageous. How dare that king be so bold? That is a bold king. Knight h3, knight h4 doesn't really give me all those dreams and wishes. Knight f3, knight h4, check, king g4, actually just king g6. Okay. I think this king will be stuck. That king should be stuck. I mean, that's the big question in this type of position. If that king will have any hiding places or not. Or enough. Let's see. Yeah, the plan is knight h4, I want h3, and I'm setting up g4 checkmate because all these squares are protected. Takes on h4. Takes on h4. Okay. Rook g6, just king h5. That's nasty. Check, king g4. Need to find the pattern h3. Key 8 doesn't do anything. Let's go king f2. I mean, the king is sort of boxed in, but I'm not like 100% sure if it is checkmate yet. Now, it could be, and it could be not. Ugh, king g4. King g4 I think is good. Too good, too good, too good. F3. King f4. Rook g6, I guess. King can go, that's, oh my god, that's a cute checkmate. Rook g6. G6, G6, D4, Rook E1, Knight E3. G6, D4, Rook E1, Knight E3. Yeah, that's not ideal. All right, got to go for G3. There, Knight E5, no. Check. And that was a decisive mistake, because Knight G5, there's King G3, but backward moves are strong, and after Knight F3, Rook H1, it's mate. And check. And mate. Nice. Sweet. Sweet, 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 sweet. Sometimes beauty comes when your opponent's king walks all the way to the other side of the board and get checkmated on move 28. Things do get beautiful. Sometimes. Some days. On Wednesdays. Yeah, the other mate I wanted to show is this one. So if, let's say, Rook G6, Rook E8, then I have G3 check, King E4, and Rook G4 checkmate. Not the average checkmate you see in a position. The king is in the middle and it cannot really go anywhere at all. All right, let's go back to the arena. Probably still can make a dash for a higher place. All right, let's do Berserkovich. D4, we're still sticking to this idea of C5, E6. And one of the things that you have to remember, E5, then there's this very good move, D4, cutting the connection between those two pieces. Bishop D7, getting the bishop to C6, counterbalancing this guy. Knight E7, going Knight G6. So if you have a line that you so much like and enjoy playing, make sure you practice it a lot. Not sure if Knight D5 was that good. Actually, I'm a bit skeptical. However, what I'm trying to say here is, when you're building a repertoire, drill it in. So I'm keeping playing E4, C5, E6, as you've seen in the beginning of this game. Always play the line that you decided to make as your main line. Castles. I don't like that move, honestly, because bishop pairs go a long way, and I'm gonna take that. Put this guy on this diag, and note that this bishop on C1 is still kind of passive. C3, D4, that's still a line. That is true. Okay. The question is, I can go knight A6. I want to go knight A6, going towards the D5 square. So knight A6 is usually a dumb move, but not in this specific one, because my knight will be lurking around important squares. All right, let's go hyper aggressive. I want to open it up for my bishop. This is sort of like a French, just a turbo version, where I actually have a monster on c6 and not a crybaby on c8. That's the difference. Literally, that's the difference. And in fact, h5 g4 is nothing to sneeze at. Not even in these days. Don't sneeze at it at all. It can be very venomous, especially if you know how good the song Battery is. In fact, it might prove deadly in this specific case. So no wonder my opponent is sorta in tank mode, because queen d5 and g4, they look very annoying. Not to forget about the fact that I do have some threats against the d4 pawn. So yeah, coming back to the topic of building a repertoire, drill it in, decide on what lines you're going to play, and then keep expanding on the knowledge. Always check up on them. Talking about expanding knowledge, this Saturday we are going to have Game Analysis Day, and also we will be looking at good old ideas for subs. So if you're a sub, excited, you should be excited, because we're going to go over your games and we will discuss some opening ideas. There, I'll take it. Okay, I'll take it. I'm not really scared of knight g5, because I'll be more than happy to get my rook on the open g file. And again, my opponent did a really good move, because I had to give up the bishop pair. However, it cost a pawn, and I'm only just one move away from castling. I wouldn't want to castle short, because there's already a pawn weakness in front of my king. So normally I would want to castle where my king feels safer. A gambit, that's what I'm trying to tell you. This e4, c5, e6, the con variation is pretty fun. Pretty much fun. And that's the line that I was trying to show you guys, and will be showing you next day as well. Knight g5. It looks like a brave choice. Looks super brave. Hard to believe it's good as well. I go queen d5 there. Knight f3. Let's go queen d5. Hitting this knight, hitting this g2 pawn. Queen g3. This runs into rook g8, as far as I know, setting up threats on the queen and knight. And I will have h6 in case of h4 or f4 when that knight is just falling. d3, h6. Yeah, when I'm dumb. I don't know why I didn't consider this one. In fact, I did, but I completely blanked out that idea. Okay, takes, knight f6 there, takes. It's not good, but I have long castles. So I keep the threat. At the same time, keep the threat. Probably f5 will come. And that will sort of blast through. There, queen e5. Wow, this guy is so tenacious. So tenacious. Takes. Let's take this pawn. Bishop f4. That must be bad because I have f5. Not only I hit on g2, I have a cross threat over there. This should be deadly. Bishop e3. Rook d3, knight g3, e5. Rook d3, knight g3, e5. Bishop h6, f4, or fe takes. Takes. Okay, takes. Takes. And I have this threat of taking on g2 and the king is in the corner. So I'm going to either win the bishop or have a deadly attack on the king. Hello, Railbird. How are you? f3, I'll take that. There, and it's time to start rolling with my guys. It is due time. There, bring in the knight. Bring in the knight. Knight f4. Now rook g2 is incoming. And notice that I am doing my best to activate a terrible piece and make it to a good one, even if it takes a lot of time. Oftentimes, it's critical. And here, from a much, much better position, I got to winning because this knight got better. And we won. All right, I guess might be able to finish respectably. So that's why it's important to activate that terrible, terrible French bishop, even if it takes you or makes you go up to c6. Very important. Okay, so I'm trying to go with e4 and knight c3 to knight c3, and that actually does help me remember. That's sort of a memory hook of me trying to play this way, and I'm going to play the Grand Prix for white. Knight f3. Knight c6 can be a bit double-edged, especially because it can lead to these structures that are not too favorable for black, like these double structures. I'm in G90 Senior Invitational this weekend with 7 GMs and many others. The F Chess is saying, any tips for preparing against older players? So, one kryptonite against older players is to be tactical. Because the older they get, they more likely that they don't want to calculate that much. So now I've got a good center here. I'm going to try to go for an attack on the king side. So I have more pieces, as black's other pieces are kind of lingering on the other side of the board. So what I would say DF chess is try to be as tactical as possible. Now, I mean, that is kind of depending also, of course, on your style and what fits you. But the best weapon for you would be to be tactical. I think I'm going to go g4, queen g3, and go in the style of the King's Indian, just rolling with those pawns. Thanks. The trouble with tactical lines, it's lots of memorization. I'm old too. I mean, that's what I'm telling you as well. That, yeah, that's the ideal scenario, but I do get your problem point. Takes. Yeah, we'll try to get this rook on the G file. I mean, it does take memorization. That's true. Queen D1, yeah, I should have avoided this. This is not ideal. What did I do wrong? Probably I should have taken on D5 earlier on. But in any case, good luck, DF chess. Okay, says you have such a good way of explaining tactics. I really like it. Glad you do. Rook f6. All right. Knight g3. I'm going to maneuver my pony to this juicy square of e4. And then I will attempt to kick out this knight. Rook f6 was actually a move that I'm not really understanding much, especially as it runs into knight e4, directly hitting that rook. Bishop d7. Okay. Bishop d2. I'm gonna develop. So the other thing that people forget is to connect rooks. Here, connecting rooks makes a lot of sense. Okay, a5. Let's activate this knight. I remind you of that character. In One Punch Man. You mean Boros? Yeah, yeah, he's my cousin. He's my cousin. We're both OP. Okay, let's go rook g1. This is the side of the board I am planning to have some fun at. So to be concrete, the F chess is asking, in the advanced Caro-Kann, you'd favor h4 over knight f3. Yes. Yes, definitely. This sort of runs into knight h5, and I'm setting up devious threats and ideas against this king. And notice that this is very much important in chess, the piece placement. People say, oh, pattern recognition, this and that. You can't attack without having a rook on an open file. You can't attack with a knight actually attacking this square on g7. So pattern recognition only comes after you know the mechanics, after we realized that you have to bring that cannon over to actually shoot at that enemy soldier on g7. So not that there is a tactic here, necessarily. In fact, sometimes I could even go knight takes g7, and that could be an idea. But I mean, the whole point is you've got to learn where the pieces belong before any pattern recognition really comes into play. I'm talking about chess here. Shockingly, perhaps Sansan. But, you know, that really comes with the training arcs. Ichigo had to train himself to become a proper fighter, warrior. Without proper training, aka bringing all your pieces to the right places, you can't really strike effectively. Oh, I'm talking about this position right at hand. And my opponent is struggling because the rook can't just drop back, can't drop to g6. Those are all covered. And that means doom for that rook. Takes. Okay, so here comes the question. I can take on g7. Question is if I want to or I should. If I take, the bishop takes, and that's not necessarily that clean. So probably knight g7 is better because the attack is sort of brewing. Note knight e6 would win a queen. Last warning. Stop being mean in the chat. We want a nice environment. If you keep being rude, then probably there are other channels that you might want to enjoy. Yeah, so knight e6 is coming. It's very, very annoying for black to deal with. And especially if the king goes to the corner, we'll have to deal with plenty of these mates. That can be a trouble. Thank you for the follow. Thank you for the follow. Kirby. King h8, and that actually falls into the category I was talking about. Knight e6, and because my rook is already on the open file, this king is cut off. So in case of rook e6, knight f7 not only gives a royal check, it also gives checkmate. Queen d5. What is this? Okay, I think I have queen g4, setting up mate on g7. Yep. Yep. E3. I can block it. Yeah, just block it. Just block it. And many mates on g8 and g7, mostly g7. And queen g7 is incoming. Explained the moves really well. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, so, but that's not the only threat. Once that rook moves, I will have knight f7 checkmating ideas on tap. There, again, I might need to be careful not to run into rook g8, so I guess queen g2 is better and best. There, okay. Let's see. Yep, let's just go queen d5. Over defending those guys. There. Now I've got to be careful, so I'm gonna go rook d1. Want to eliminate that folk. And now I am going to collect them all. Collect them all. Knight b4. That's tricky. Tricky. Queen d7, just bother that bishop. And once that bishop is gone, knight f7 will be my next idea. All right. All righty. Okay. So, all right, it's time for this a good old way of playing. Let's go here, knight f6, g6. Bishop g7, and we're going with the King's Indian play. Hey Lolamento, what's up? Okay, c5. I want to go c5, break it open. There, c5. So it's called berserking. When you berserk, you get more points. It's kind of like Contra. I don't know how many of you play some other games. Let's go BC, taking towards the center. And with me actually getting half my time, I get more points in the tournament. Okay, let's go rook e8. Notice that I'm trying to over defend that pawn on e5. Okay. D4. I've got a bigger center. Start pushing. C3, but then again, if you let me play D3, that should be very painful, especially that bishop being extremely passive on B1. Knight C5. So I'm ganging up on the E4 pawn. B3. Okay. Let's develop. Also bother the E4 guy. Takes. Rook d8 over defending the d pawn, and believe it or not, that bishop is virtually trapped. It is virtually trapped there. Sort of like overprotection, right? H5, I'm trying to undermine that knight, because if that leaves, this guy on e4 is falling. Queen d2, but in that case, I'll take your rook. Thank you. There, I'll take this. There, h4. h3. This is actually a typical idea in these e6, c5 Sicilians. You create a weakness on this side of the board. I don't know if I want to take it. I don't think I want to take it yet. There, queen c5. Because this bishop is virtually entrapped. It can't move. Like, it looks like it can move, but it really can't. I'm gonna activate this fork. Bishop g7, bishop h6. There, and that looks nice, but that c-pawn will never move. Never, ever. Rook f6. Putting pressure. Bishop d1. Okay, let's get this other rook on the file. Notice that I'm trying to activate both of my guys. There, okay. It's time to switch it up and go there, in this direction. Now I'll take rook f6, and that is when white will be overloaded. This queen defends this bishop, and there's nobody defending the f2 pawn. f3, Actually, it's not overloaded quite yet, but we're almost there. We're almost there. Okay, let's go G5. Open it up with G4. G4. Okay, back. Now we wait. So takes. Doesn't do anything. All right, let's just wait a tad bit. Takes. But actually just queen e3 is best. Now queen e2 is a big threat. And note, that will be very useful to have a pawn over there. Now queen g2 is checkmate. That's why this maneuver of h5, h4, h3 is so strong. All right, so that's it for this tournament. I do want to check out what we learned today. So what we learned today is the following, just as a wrap-up and a new chapter. What we learned on day 2. Okay, so what we learned is e4, c5. So we're going to play knight c3 regardless of what happens, except for d5, because in this case we take e takes d5. The only exception in any other cases, we play knight c3. So e takes d5, this is the exception. Knight c3 here, bishop c4. In fact, this is very accurate because bishop g4 would run into this beautiful mate over here. So this is important to remember. E takes d5 in the Scandi, but otherwise you go knight c3, e6, f4, going in the Grand Prix style, knight c6, knight f3, d5 here, and I think I should have taken, yes. So e takes d5 would have been the better move. Sort of putting pressure on the opponent, and as e takes d5 is virtually forced. The reason my opponent played knight d7, which deserves an exclamation mark, is if I take, the knight could take back. But after e takes d5, if you take with the knight, I'll take that moment to double your pawns, and this is considered to be slightly better for white. Now, probably e takes d5 is the best, but in this case, black's development is not too harmonious. That e4, c5, and the one about black concept learned on day 2. And we're going to rotate. So e4, c5, knight f3, e6, c3. Is that d5 is still the name of the game. You want to claim the center. e5 and d4. Conversely, you want to take away the option from your opponent to take the center. And after bishop d3, bishop d7 is very good. Activating the black bishop with good counterplay for black. So these are the things that we learned today. Barig, thank you for the follow, Fortnite player, Capoblanco, Kirby. So this is what we learned. We are going to have another day of learning. We actually do learn about the kid this c5 e6 con variation. So what we know so far is that we want to gain space and take away space from our opponent. You can definitely check out the previous WOD if you're interested. And that'll be it for this time. And let us raid. So thank you so much for being here. If you are interested, do check us out on our Discord, where you can join us and have some fun. We definitely are going to continue with our journey on how to build a repertoire. So if you enjoyed it, I'll be welcoming you back in this soon and upcoming future. It should be a fun ride. We've actually touched upon the conversation a little bit, not a whole lot. And even if we don't have anything right there, I'm going to make sure that we get touched upon that one and we take a closer look. So if you have any questions apart and on that topic, do post it on Discord or let me know later on that day tomorrow. And don't forget, on Saturday, we will have special game analysis and opening analysis for subs. So with that, I say bye-bye to you all. Take care.